Hi, what I'd like to talk about today is the adjustment of the bit. How high do we carry the bit in the horse's mouth? A lot of us have been told we carry it right at the corner of the mouth. Some say we want a little wrinkle, maybe two, nice smile. What is the proper height to carry the bit? I've been working with a new mouthpiece recently, and this really got me thinking about it because some of the things that happened when I was playing with it. What I'm going to be talking about today is how this works on the two horses that I'm riding right now. There's a lot of variables that come into effect here because we got different muzzle lengths, we got short, long, we got big tongues, thick tongues, narrow tongues, so different things. So everything I've got today is kind of related to my two horses, but I think it'll give us a kind of a good idea of what's going on inside the mouth. I started both of my horses as colts in our combination bit, and that's where it has the mouthpiece and the noseband. I used our 04 Comfort Snaffle, which is a very low port, about a half-inch tongue relief, and it's very flexible. And when we put this on and off, when we're adjusting the head, putting it on and off a horse, what we do is once we get it adjusted properly, when we're taking it off, we drop it 2 holes. And that makes it easy to get it back off over the ears and down and off, and that makes it easy when we come back to put it on, to get it on, hold the nose band up, get everything kind of centered, and then pull up them 2 holes. I always noticed when I put that back on, until I got this all pulled up the 2 holes, when it was hanging that low, they were just banging on their teeth, and you could just tell they were not comfortable at that point. So once I got it pulled up to where they felt comfortable, it was usually with that particular mouthpiece, just a nice little wrinkle on both sides. And that's where they seemed to be the most comfortable and seemed to work the best. That's what they were telling me. I was working with this new mouthpiece, and it's quite a bit taller port for an older, little more broke horse, and we've been working fine, both horses. Well, I did this with my one horse. He was standing there, and I was getting ready to bridle him, and I said, I think I'm going to pull this up a hole and just see what he does. I've been riding it right at the corner of the mouth. So when I put it on, and I pulled that up a hole, now my bridle, the holes are 1 inch apart. So when I pulled it up that hole and centered it up, it was like I really raised it a 1/2 inch. Well, I mean, like, wow, his whole attitude changed. He sat there and his eyes kind of got big. His neck raised just a little bit. And then he kind of lowered down and set his ears back, and it was just like he was sitting there assaulting. I said, wow, that don't seem right. So I lowered it back down to where it's supposed to go, and he came back to his normal self, relaxed, his eye got right, his ears went right, and he seemed like he was okay to go. So what this is going to boil down to as we get into this, what I'd say is the horse always tells us. Anytime we're putting on a new bit, what we do is we call it introducing. And when we're introducing, what we first do is we pull it right to the corner. And we kind of step back and we just kind of watch him a little bit. There's a chance if you put a new bit on, he's going to be messing with it a little bit, running, just like when you go to the dentist. Once the dentist has worked on your teeth, when you get done, you come out, your tongue's running all over everywhere, trying to feel everything new and different. That's possibly what these horses are doing. So I'm going to give him a little time to relax there and see how he does it. Now if he doesn't really relax, I might, after a little bit, I might go over there and pull it up a hole, center everything up, and see how he does. Somewhere in there, I feel like up or down, somewhere in there, there's an ideal spot for him to carry that mouthpiece, unless it's just absolutely not the right mouthpiece that's going to work on this horse. So then what I do is I'm introducing the bit. What we like to do in introducing any bit, now that we've got him relaxed, at the height, whichever it comes to, if it's right at the corner, or if it's a slight wrinkle or a smile, if that's where he's relaxed, then we're going to play with him on the ground, doing our laterals and our verticals. Because those are the only 3 ways. I want to put a little contact on this horse, and those are the only 3 ways I'm ever going to pull on the horse. So I was like, it's safer to do it on the ground. So I'm going to slide down, work on my laterals left, go around, work on them right, reach over the withers, ask him to get soft, break at the pole. And if he's handling everything okay, I feel like I've got it adjusted and ready to go ride. If he gets out there and we start getting worse the longer we go, because the longer we go, the harder we breathe, the harder we work, I might decide, well, I don't have it adjusted and play with it a little more, or I might realize I just have the wrong mouthpiece, as I said, for this horse. So one of the things that we did when I first got into building bits, and we'd be talking about tongue pressure and different things about bits, is I'd go back to my days when I was younger and played sports, and how I related to tongue pressure was we used to wear one of these mouth guards in sports. Now this had nothing to do with communicating with me, like bits are used to communicate. But it was something in my mouth. And anytime you put anything in the mouth, because there's not much room in a person's mouth or a horse's mouth, there's going to be some sort of restriction. The idea about this was what it had the opening in here, so I could move my tongue freely. Because when I swallow, what happens, my tongue kind of forces up towards the front and the roof of my mouth. It's like I need that little bit of restriction to swallow. Well, if I didn't have this open, I couldn't push it in, and it would always felt like my tongue was down. So if I push my tongue in the bottom of my mouth and try to swallow, what I feel is a lot of tension in my neck and throat. And if I was out trying to do anything physical and had it held down there, the longer I'd go, the stiffer I'd get, plus it'd be affected with my breathing. So one of the deals that we are is trying to give that tongue the freedom to move. So that brought me back to why would a horse maybe act more comfortable with a wrinkle with some bits and more comfortable without a wrinkle with others. The same horse. So I got back to looking at some of our pictures and some of the drawings. This is Dr. Dale Jeffrey. He's a medical equine dentist. And he sent us this a number of years ago, and what we were talking about here was, as I just said, the breathing process, how prolonged pressure on the tongue can interfere with the breathing and cause the stiffness in the neck and shoulders. But I got to looking at a couple other pictures we got when Dale was attending one of his clinics out there and visiting with him. And you can see the size of the tongue here, and you can actually see it's all the way up against the front of the teeth. And right up here, you can see there's very little room between the palate and the tongue. Just like in this drawing, there's very little room between that palate and that tongue. The black is the opening. But you do notice there's a dip right here. And then it gets very little room again. Now this is looking at the side of the tongue. See how the tongue comes in? This is the tip of the tongue, D. C is what they call the base of the tongue. But this tip right here comes in and then it dips there as it gets back up in there. Now looking at the front, look how wide and big it is here, but look how it also gets narrow as it comes back here. So it looks like it narrows down both ways right in this area. Now just for future reference, this particular horse, look at the size of these lips. They're very big and beefy. And every bridle bit has to have a position for them lips to lay too. So I'll keep that in mind as we go through this. So as I sat looking at this, and I didn't know, here's one of the things we were talking about, the variables. This seems to be the biggest area, the most room. If that bit was lying right there, it seems like the horse would be most comfortable. For one thing, if he swallows like I do, and his tongue, about the first half of it here, goes to pushing up into the roof of that mouth and towards the front, this still stays hollowed out, and if the bit's laying there, he's not pushing it into the roof of his mouth, and he can swallow freely. If that bit's down here and putting pressure on that tongue, he has to force his tongue into the bottom and swallow. It's just like we experienced. You're going to feel that stiffness in your neck and your shoulders. So I'm sitting here, I'm looking down thinking about my palm and how to explain this. And if this is C, right here, if this is the base of the tongue, and it's tied in here, the whole lower is tied in, so it don't move as freely as the tip here, D. Let's say the palm of my hand was C, the base of the tongue, And my fingers here were D, the tip of the tongue, and G is this bit groove they're talking about where there's the most room. If that bit's laying right in there, that means anytime I need to swallow, push the roof of my mouth, lick my lips, anything I need to do, I can do it freely without that bit interfering. As I start to drop it down here, it's going to start interfering much more with my ability to move my tongue and swallow freely. So that's why I feel this has something to do with the wrinkle or no wrinkle, because of the variables. We're not exactly sure from the muzzle to the corner how that lines up with this groove all the time. So it can depend on different mouthpieces. One horse might ride one mouthpiece at a wrinkle and might ride another one just at the corner of the mouth. So that's going to lead me on to my next part of this demonstration, which I have a skull here. And as we're looking at this, I want you to remember the variables we just talked about. And what we're going to do, the bits I've got here, these are just how they work on my two horses. But it's going to give us a pretty good idea how a lot of things might work on a lot of horses. Now what I want to do is have the face on here first, because remember I was telling you about that picture and them big old beefy lips? Well, they have to have a place on the bit too, and what they do is they sit right here. So if that was like the corner of the mouth, and these were lips, this would be right here. Now on my two horses with this particular mouthpiece, this bit will ride right at the corner with no wrinkle. So that's what we're going to start with. Everything we're going to talk about is how this works on my two horses. Now the three bits or four bits I'm going to play with here, the measurement from this mouthpiece to where this purchase is the same on all of them. And I've made up some different adjustment straps here with some clips so we could exchange real quick. But if you notice what happens, this bit's coming in down here with no wrinkle right at the corner. It angles up, goes across the bit groove we were talking about, comes down and out with no wrinkle. So what that means is this horse has all the freedom in the world to move that tongue. He can push and swallow, he can lip his lip, anything he needs to do. But if I didn't have a port in that bit, and this here's where it's coming across with no port, got to get my head, that mouthpiece will be laying way down there like that. So let's look at one with no port and see what that looks like. Now what I want to do is keep the same head stall adjustment. So that means what we would do when this comes in, it would be adjusted just like if it the ported one, that you don't have a wrinkle. It's right at the corner of the mouth. So if this is adjusted just like the ported one, it's going to be riding down here, because you remember the ported one came in down here, angled up, went across, came down and out. Now anytime that horse has to do anything with his tongue, he's got pressure on it constantly. He can't really move it freely to swallow and lick his lips without messing with it. So there's a good chance I'm going to have to pull this up to get him more comfortable. Now I don't really know if I have to pull it all the way to here. If I pulled it up a hole here and he seemed fine, worked fine, I'd probably stay there. If he didn't, I might pull it up till I got to here. But I'm going to let him tell me. I don't have the exacts on this. But right here, I'm going to have a pretty good smile. So let me get the adjustment for that one. Now if I was riding this bit and my horse was comfortable with a smile, that's fine. He's still got all the freedom in the world to move his tongue, lick his lips, swallow, whatever he needs to do. But sometimes we might try to get a horse, he's busy or something, he just can't get comfortable in that mouthpiece, and it could be the mouthpiece, so we just keep cranking it up to where we got him in a bind. So if I took this adjustment and I got a smile and I put that port in there, let's look what happens then. Wow. Now I think that could be pretty obvious how that couldn't be comfortable. I've got a smile, trying to keep him from getting his tongue over it. But I'm way up here beating on the teeth, way up here in the thick part of the tongue again. There's very little room between this palate and there. He's got all the tongue freedom in the world, but I just can't imagine how that's going to be comfortable for your horse. So I think we can definitely raise them too high also. So let me get the proper adjustment back for this one again, and what I want to talk about for just a second is, before we leave here, is a lot of people seem to think ported bits are more severe. Well, what I tell them, some of these ported bits are designed for tongue freedom, and some are designed to have more authority. These wider ones like this are for the freedom of the tongue. It's wide enough when I pull around, if I was on, I pulled straight back, that port tilts forward slightly. Because that's what happens, that's the action it's going to have. So it kind of lifts barely off the tongue, not much, you won't notice it really that much, but anything in the mouth is little things or big things. But he's got all this freedom to move this, but none of this is going down and pinching into his tongue or pinching into his hard part of his jaw, his bars. Now let's look at some of the narrower ports. And this is where I'm going to agree. These bits do have some more authority, or if you want to say severity, but a lot of that comes with the fact is in the hands. It doesn't necessarily have to be tough, but it has the potential to be. Now this is coming across here, going up into the big groove. But see how narrow it is? It's got this nice soft roll. But if I pull back, and there's some pretty good freedom here, but it's so narrow it restricts a little bit. But if I pull straight back on this bit, being so narrow, it's going to come right in here, pinch that tongue into these lower jaw, or, depends on the size of the tongue, that horse might get it where he can get it in there and evade it, and he'll just drive that into the lower jaw. But there's two possibilities. He's going to pinch the tongue into the lower jaw, or he's going to get the lower jaw. But either way, he's going to be pressing into that lower jaw. And here's where they have a chance to go to the palate being this tall. But the palate's not that big a deal. I mean, unless the mouth is strapped shut, the horse can always open his mouth to avoid the palate. Now I want to show you another narrow port that I would say even has more authority, because now remember this nice soft roll here. I want you to look at here. This has got kind of an edge to it. So let's put this on and look at what it's going to look like for just a second. This has two things. It's going to collapse and pinch in like this. But them sharp edges are are going to drive right into that tongue, unless he can get it out of there, but then you got them two edges right into the jawbone. So yes, your narrower ports are designed to have more authority, but as we've seen in this demonstration, these wider ports are a milder mouthpiece if you consider giving this horse some tongue relief, a mild way to go. So in conclusion, I think we've kind of covered how your narrower ports are for authority and your wider ports are for more tongue relief. But as far as a wrinkle or a smile or the corner of the mouth, that could depend on mouthpieces. Some horses are going to ride better with a wrinkle with certain mouthpieces. Some are going to ride better just right at the corner because all of the variables involved. But the whole point, what I was trying to get across is don't feel bad if the horse rides better with a wrinkle, if that's where he says it's most comfortable. We've got to listen to these horses. Anyway, I don't know if you got anything out of this or not. I thought it was quite interesting when I got back and looking at these drawings and always wondering why some horses rode better, had a wrinkle, and some at the corner of the mouth. Bottom line comes down, let's let the horses tell us. If there's any questions, if I didn't explain something good enough, if you want to, you can go on our website. If you want to call us, you want to email us, we're more than happy to visit with you. If there's anything else, looking at this rig up I got here, if there's anything else you think I might be able to demonstrate and we can work on together, give us a holler. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you.